Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith from the studios of our flagship stations, Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. In addition, today, as always, also joining us on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99 in the Birmingham-Bloomfield area is Birmingham Area Municipal Access, otherwise known as BAMA. You can also find us on Channel 15 on Comcast and AT&T Channel 99 in Southfield on City Cable 15 of Southfield. Join us on Channel 10 in Waterford on the Media Network of Waterford and on Channel 10 live to tape at 1 p.m. and 1 a.m. in Lake Orion and Orion Township on Orion Neighborhood Television or ON TV. Find us on the radio in the Birmingham area, the Bloomfield area, and Troy on 88.1 The Biff, a service of the Bloomfield Hills School District with operations out of Bloomfield Hills High School over there on Andover Road in Bloomfield Hills. Find us also online, civiccentertv.com. Click on our Watch Live link there at the top of our homepage or in the left margin of the screen on some of your mobile devices, including your cell phones, as well as on our Facebook pages, facebook.com/civiccentertv15 and facebook.com/lakesfm. Find us on My Michigan TV as well on the web, on your smartphone, and on your smart TV. Go to mymytv.com. That is MYMI. TV.com to learn more information about everywhere you can find My Michigan TV on your smartphone, on your smart TVs, on the web, and more. MyMyTV.com, or head over to CivicCenterTV.com and click on our Megacast link, where you'll find links to every single one of our partnering television, radio, and web outlets that join us every single day live and live to tape. And you'll also find all of our full episodes and each individual interview on demand on that page as well. CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast. Over on our coronavirus page at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, we're keeping you up to date on everything you need to know on the COVID front of things, as we have information linked directly to the COVID-19 pages for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and the Oakland County Health Division. So you can stay up to date on the spread of COVID-19 in our local area here in Oakland County, where we originate our broadcast, as well as all throughout the state of Michigan from the CDC and the MDHHS. Find more information on precautionary tactics that you can be employing in your daily life, whether it be at work, and out in the community, even at home. If you have some visitors, keep yourself and keep others safe from COVID-19, prevent the spread so we can eventually get ourselves out of this pandemic, as well as other ways that you can help us get out of this pandemic through vaccination and through those booster shots. Learn more about each of those vaccines, the three available vaccines, Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson, as well as those booster shots, where you can get all of them, as well as more information and frequently asked questions as well from all three of those outlets, linked right at the top of our page at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. And then just a little ways below that on our coronavirus page, we link to articles from all across the state of Michigan, from journalistic outlets on TV and radio and, of course, in print, so you can stay up to date on everything that's making headlines in the Great Lakes state. Monday through Friday, just before our shows, we scour all of these journalistic outlets to find the top stories making headlines all across the great state of Michigan. And, of course, this show was built from the onset of the coronavirus pandemic, so we want to keep you up to date as much as we can on the spread of cases. And of course, with yesterday being Monday, one of the 3 days every week that the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services releases their latest COVID-19 numbers, we first bring you those updated numbers from our friends at the Detroit News, as Michigan added 9,889 cases and 38 deaths from COVID-19 over the past 3 days before the Monday release. It includes totals from Saturday and Sunday of last week. The state averaged 3,299 cases per day over that 3-day period. Monday's additions bring the state's total to 2,019,199 confirmed cases and 30,417 deaths since the virus was first detected here in Michigan in March of 2020. The state on Monday also reported 2,516 adults and 62 pediatric patients were hospitalized with confirmed infections, and 78% of the state's inpatient hospital beds were also occupied with COVID-19 patients. Adult hospitalization rates are also declining from records set on January 10th, when 4,580 adults were hospitalized with COVID-19. About 15% of hospital beds were filled with COVID patients, and there were an average of 1,366 emergency room visits related to COVID-19 per day in the state as of Monday, compared to 24% and 2,889 emergency room visits due to the virus in the first week of January of this year. About 85% of COVID-19 hospitalizations are among unvaccinated persons, compared to 15% of those being from breakthrough cases among the vaccinated, either fully vaccinated, partially vaccinated, or up to date, which means, of course, that is defined as being having received your 1-dose Johnson & Johnson or both of your 2-dose Pfizer or Moderna shots, as well as a booster shot. The case counts continued to drop from early January when the state set a new high watermark of more than 20,000 confirmed cases per day of COVID-19. The dip lines up with modeling predictions that suggest that COVID-19's surge would peak at the end of January or in the beginning of this month of February. Lynn Sutphin, a spokesperson for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, recently noted. Henry Ford Health System officials also expressed optimism over a slight decline in COVID hospitalizations with the medical system and its in-staff vacancies in recent weeks. Federal medical teams were deployed to assist in the care of patients at Beaumont's Dearborn location, Henry Ford's Wyandotte location, Spectrum Health's location in Grand Rapids, Covenant Healthcare in Saginaw, Mercy Health in Muskegon, and the Lansing-based Sparrow Health System earlier on this year. The Omicron variant is still driving a rise in cases. In Michigan, variants of the virus are moving at a high rate, proving more contagious and infectious in both unvaccinated and vaccinated residents. Medical officials have recommended surgical or KN95 masks, as the Omicron variant has been shown to linger on cloth masks. The state, as of Friday, confirmed 2,561 cases of Omicron by genetic sequencing at the Michigan Bureau of Laboratories in Lansing. The majority of those cases are in southeastern Michigan. Roughly 95% of cases of COVID-19 in the country are caused by the Omicron variant at this time, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That full article linked to the Detroit News on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Of course, as always, while you head over there and click on that link, we encourage you to read other articles from our friends at the Detroit News and all these other publications, and subscribe should you have the means to do so, and support local journalism here in the Metro Detroit area, in southeastern Michigan, and in all regions of our great state. Also making headlines on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus from the Detroit Free Press. Some good news coming to Detroit homeowners. Some Detroit homeowners can apply for a new program to protect basements from flooding. Homeowners in some Detroit neighborhoods can apply for a new city program to help protect them and protect their basements from future flooding. City officials announced the Basement Backup Protection Program on Monday. It's an up to $15 million plan with a pilot phase funded by $2.4 million in federal COVID-19 pandemic relief dollars. Last summer's severe rainfall, deemed a major disaster by President Biden, left cars stranded on flooded freeways and damaged homes and businesses. The event led to the creation of a program to install backwater valves and sump pumps and protect residential homeowners in 11 Detroit neighborhoods who have historically faced basement backups during large downpours. Late last June, when nearly 6 inches of rain fell, more than 32,000 basements saw backed up rainwater or combined sewage in their homes. Quote, we had about a dozen neighborhoods in this city that are low-lying areas vulnerable to flooding in times of torrential rain, said Mayor Duggan in a news briefing on Monday. The program will first begin in the Aviation Sub and Victoria Park neighborhoods, 2 communities that were hit hardest by the June floods, according to the city. The work will launch in the spring, and 530 homes are expected to be eligible across those 2 neighborhoods. Then in the summer, the program will focus on the following areas: Barton McFarland, Chadsey Condon, Cornerstone Village, East English Village, Garden View, Jefferson Chalmers, Morningside, Morris Morang, and Warrendale. The city identified these neighborhoods because of Detroit Water and Sewage Department, or DWSD, service requests for basement backups and claims. The second phase of the initiative is slated to run from July to December of 2024. The city says it can pay up to $6,000 in aid per household. Quote, if you are in one of 11 neighborhoods, apply now. Our plumbing contractors need to understand the capacity, how many people they need to hire to be ready to get this job done, said Gary Brown, the director of DWSD. Owners of occupied single-family homes, 2-family flats, and duplexes are eligible for the program. Once an application is approved, the City of Detroit's Buildings, Safety, Engineering, and Environmental Department, or BSED, will perform an inspection. A licensed plumber will then look at the home and suggest appropriate services to be made in your home. Those may include inspection of sewer lateral service line with a camera, disconnecting downspouts, and installing extensive 3 feet extensions 3 feet from the foundation, installing a backwater valve only if the sewer lateral is, quote, in viable condition, and closed quote, installing sump pumps where possible, and putting in place backwater valves and sump pumps with overflow. If a private sewer pipe has collapsed, has cracked, or has another defect, the homeowner must first get that repaired themselves before they can move forward with the program. The deposit fee will be waived for homeowners whose income qualifies them for the city's Water Residential Assistance Program, or WRAP, which is a water affordability program for households at or below 200% of the federal poverty level. In other words, a family of 4 with an income of $53,000. Landlords must pay a 20% deposit for each eligible household and don't qualify for the waiver. The program is not open to commercial properties or nonprofits. More information on this program from the city of Detroit to help prevent flooding in the future in many of these homes and many of these residential neighborhoods. And result of the floods from last June during that period of torrential downpours. From the Detroit Free Press on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Lastly, making headlines today on our coronavirus page from Bridge, Michigan, the feds are relaxing rules for workers ordered to repay Michigan unemployment benefits. A wave of Michigan residents who were told that they had to repay their pandemic unemployment benefits may no longer need to do so. Governor Whitmer announced on Monday that the U.S. Department of Labor granted a request by the state to expand eligibility for waivers for workers who had received pandemic unemployment assistance and other temporary federal benefits from spring of 2020 through September 4th of last year. About $5.7 billion in unemployment benefits were improperly given to people who said they were jobless during the pandemic, the state said in January. The payments were made with federal funds to people who would not normally be eligible for benefits, including part-time, self-employed, and gig workers. However, many of them in the past few months received letters saying they'd been found to be ineligible for those payments and would have to repay them. In some cases, those repayments were exceeding $20,000. But the federal ruling means the state can now waive repayments for those who apply for benefits in good faith. Quote, Michiganders should not be penalized for doing what is right at the time that they applied for federal pandemic benefits, and closed quote, said Governor Whitmer in a statement released about 6 p.m. on Monday. That article from Bridge, Michigan, as well as all of our articles making headlines today and every day before the Megacast on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, as well as those very important links, ever important links as we're continuing to deal with COVID-19 and with the spread of the highly virulent Omicron variant in our local area and all across the state of Michigan on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. We have a great show ahead of you today on this Tuesday edition of the Megacast. Coming up next, Oakland County Commissioner Charlie Cavell from District 18 will join us on the show. At the bottom of the hour, we'll stay in Pontiac. We'll go from the Board of Commissioners to the Pontiac Community Foundation to speak with Dustin McClellan, the founder of that organization. At 11 o'clock, we're talking all about the census and all about the new district lines here in the state of Michigan and how that data and population numbers are impacting funding all across the state and at the state and federal level, as well as our upcoming elections. We'll speak to Kurt Metzger, the former mayor of Pleasant Ridge and the founder of Data Driven Detroit, to analyze some of these numbers, including really interesting numbers that for the first time, deaths in Michigan exceeded the number of births in 2020. Then finally at 11:20, Laura Oliveira, president and programs co-chair at the Association for Women in Communications Detroit chapter, will join us. And at 11:40 to cap off the show, we'll speak with the executive director of a Share Detroit-supported charity and nonprofit, David Silver, the executive director of Detroit Horsepower, will join us on the Megacast. That's all coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
If you are struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to a $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit or call toll-free at 833-511-0311.
A public service announcement from 89.3 Lakes FM.
We as Michiganders feel connected to this resource in a way that I think is really powerful.
Conservation starts with a caring, committed community.
For me, it's peaceful to have a relationship with the river.
Every single one of us has a role to make sure that those waterways stay safe and healthy, being careful about what goes down the storm drain.
Just even eliminating some of your single-use plastic makes a difference.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Did you know that nearly 3.31 million Americans don't get their annual checkup? Going to the doctor regularly is extremely important and is a crucial factor in maintaining good health. Make sure you are visiting your local doctor often and telling them about any health concerns you have. For more information, contact your local healthcare provider. This message is brought to you by WBHS Digital Media Arts Program and 89.3 Lakes FM.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources, call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
Parents do a lot of worrying. Get your kids caught up on childhood vaccines to protect them from these 14 preventable diseases, and you'll have 14 fewer things to worry about. Vaccines are safe and effective and save lives. So let's get caught up on vaccines and worry about something else. Get the facts at ivaccinate.org.
We may come from different organizations,
But we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Most of the pollution that goes into our rivers is carried by rainwater that flows off of roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
The leaves and bark of a single tree can retain a surprising amount of rainwater. Depending on its size and species, it could be 100 gallons or more.
It is estimated that an urban forest can reduce annual runoff by up to 7%.
Here's one thing that we know can help keep our water clean.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Welcome back to Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe. You can learn more about our show by visiting our website at civiccentertv.com and clicking on our Megacast link. There you'll find links to each and every one of our partnering TV, radio, and web outlets here in Oakland County and all throughout the state of Michigan, and find links to find all of our shows and each individual interview on demand as well. civiccentertv.com/Megacast. Joining us now from the 18th District here in Oakland County is Oakland County Commissioner Charlie Cavell, as the county is expected to be giving out some 800,000 N95 masks to residents all throughout the county as we continue to deal with COVID-19 with the Omicron variant, and of course in the light of federal programs and state programs to distribute these masks to help prevent the spread of the highly transmissible Omicron variant. Commissioner Cavell, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. You can just call me Charlie.
Okay, I'll just call you Charlie then. So first off, let's talk about that N95 mask distribution program. 800,000 masks thereabouts that are going to be handed out to residents. Let's start off with the basics of that distribution. How are those 800 masks going to go from the possession of the county to then be distributed out to the residents of Oakland County?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So first I want to recognize that this is like a tectonic shift in the way our government thinks about its role with our people, right? Doing something for the common good is something that is always up for debate, especially in government. And since we're in a democracy, hopefully our whole community participates in it as much as possible. But what's really important about this mass distribution is first that it's actually happening in the first place, right? Because giving something for free, if you will, to the end user, because it costs money, but to the end user, the person getting the mask, it is free. That's a big step forward for our government, just FYI, again, in terms of serving the common good. The way we're going to go about this is by the end of February, we want to make sure that cities, police departments, township halls, all the normal government places you might have to go to interact with your government and its politics will have masks available for you throughout Oakland County. And then going a layer deeper for organizations like the JCC or Common Ground, other nonprofits in the area that might serve people, you can get a mask there. And then further afield, there's going to be individual distribution. So like I, as the county commissioner for the 18th district, I have a huge box of them and can request more at any time and have a bunch in my car. So, you know, I went to the Winterfest in Berkeley over the weekend and had a pile ready to give out to folks if they needed. So we're hoping to reach a pile of individuals.
We're joined by Charlie Cavell, Oakland County Commissioner representing District 18 here in Oakland County. And as he said, a number of different municipalities, Ferndale, Hazel Park, Huntington Woods, and Royal Oak Township, as well as a portion of the city of Oak Park being represented in District 18. And so where did that shift really begin? You mentioned that tectonic shift in the role that the government plays in protecting the public health, and with these mass distributions, because this is a lot. This is a lot of product here. It's 800,000 masks thereabout available for free to the residents of the county. Obviously, it's got some connection to the federal programs and the state programs that are in place to distribute these masks in reaction to the highly transmissible Omicron variant. But where does this process really start from, having that availability to making this a county program and then working with partners throughout the community here in Oakland County in order to distribute these masks to people?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you asking that question because I think this is an evolution of, again, the conversation that us as a people and our government through the process of democracy have been having since the pandemic began, right? We used to commonly say things like, well, that's a school that's not in my school district, so why should I be paying for them? That's not a road in my community, so why should I pay for that road? But the pandemic has really shed that discourse, I think, and allowed us to go a layer deeper in understanding, again, that if we're using our tax dollars, which again, we're not raising taxes to do this, so you're still paying the same, and without getting into the conversation of whether or not you're paying too high in taxes or too low in taxes, where we are is saying with the money we give the government every year in taxes, what the common good means has started to shift. And that's what I was alluding to when I was saying the tectonic shift is, again, it's very rare for the government to provide something that is, one, universal, right? 800,000 masks, so that means everyone can have access to them, and there's more on the way if needed. So there's that. Second, in addition to being universal, the second thing is that it is something that is free to the end user, right? I mean, I'm sitting here in the county complex. There are people that are shuffling in and out to the county clerk that have to pay for birth certificates for their kids, right? Even pieces of paper from the government are not free. So being able to offer something free to the end user, and then again, something that is universal, I think is reframing what it means to have a common good and the government be of service in that role to you, which is, again, a new way of thinking that we haven't had in a long time. And I'd argue is a good thing, right? It's nuts and bolts stuff. It's not super radical things. It's, well, we all agree that we all would benefit from these sorts of things. So if we can make it easy for people to get, we will.
And so, Charlie, on that note, mentioning that, of course, there's this wide availability for residents of Oakland County to pick up these masks to get them through a number of different outlets. And there's 800,000 of them, so there's plenty to go around. But eventually, these will run out because we're going to continue to be dealing with COVID-19. We're going to be continuing to deal with the Omicron variant and potentially other variants coming up that may be as transmissible, possibly even more transmissible than the Omicron variant. Has there been any discussion at the county level in continuing this program going forward, and more importantly, the logistics of making that happen, should that be necessary going forward when we get beyond the Omicron variant, and ultimately when these 800,000 masks have all been distributed?
Yeah, great question. So there are currently conversations going on and have been going on since the beginning of the pandemic. So we have an ad hoc committee. So I'm going to say some bureaucratic government-y sounding things, but to you who like know and understand local government, these words will mean something, and then I'll explain. So we have a pandemic ad hoc committee that's been around since the beginning of the pandemic. We have a special study group that's working on emerging variants, which has come about since the Delta variant. And then, of course, we have the Public Health and Safety Standing Committee. So that means basically there's a super informal work group of people that is trying to, on the commission, elected by you, the residents, trying to figure out, working with county commission staff and the 5,000 employees in Oakland County government, many of whom are public health department employees, mind you. So working with the experts in their field locally here about what it means to address the emerging variant need, address what the pandemic has brought us structurally. So that's thinking more economically and socially. And then third, there's the standing committee where I'm about to have to go to, that allocates the funds, right? That's the main job of the county commission, is to discern whether or not XYZ project is worth allocating your taxes towards so that the executive can execute that project. So we have 3 layers of county commission government alone working on this in addition to the full-time staff of the public health department. So we're definitely thinking about it. And the problem though has been, because it's a variant and because Oakland County is where it is, just being in the middle of a state in the middle of the country, we're spending a lot of time reacting, right? So this is kind of like the bank robbers in the 1930s. It was hard to catch Bonnie and Clyde because you're always reacting to where they were going to rob a bank next. So that's what we've been doing, but we've tightened that feedback loop of what it means to react to the Delta variant or the Omicron variant with these 3 work groups.
We're joined by Charlie Cavell, Oakland County Commissioner representing the 18th District here in Oakland County, joining us on the Megacast. More information on everything from Oakland County's continued reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic and their work on the front lines by visiting our website, civiccentertv.com, clicking on our coronavirus link, and there at the top of the page we have a link to Oakland County that will take you directly to their COVID-19 specific webpage through the Oakland County Health Division, so you can learn more information on, of course, vaccines, on testing, where you can get some of these masks that are being provided, these 800,000 masks being provided through this program in Oakland County, and more information on COVID-19 as it comes in over time, either at oakgov.com/COVID or by visiting our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, and just click on that Oakland County website. It'll take you directly to their COVID-19 specific webpage and have all those easy links to get you more information you need to know on COVID-19. And so, again, we're joined by Charlie Cavell, Oakland County Commissioner from District 18. And of course, Charlie, in other news, the districts have been realigned. This happens quite regularly, of course, with the County Commission, but also as a result of the work of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission. You are a member of the 18th District and represents a number of cities. In the 2022 election for your upcoming term, you'll be running for the 19th District, however, representing Ferndale, Pleasant Ridge, Huntington Woods, Berkeley, part of Royal Oak, and most of Birmingham. What are your thoughts on the new district and some of the realignment that's happened from the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission and how it affects these districts here in Oakland County?
Yeah, so I break that into 2 parts, right? There's us and our team in the 18th, soon to be 19th district, and then there's the Citizens Redistricting Commission, right? Because the county had the authority to redraw its own lines out of some sort of weird loophole that was done back in 2011. That was just kind of a strange occurrence that happened before my time. But so speaking first to the 19th district, I think it's great because currently the district that I'm fortunate enough to represent, the 18th, is 77% Democrat, and I'm a Democrat. And then the new 19th district is something like 58% Democrat in a good year. So what's good about that is people in hard right or hard left communities don't feel the need to engage oftentimes, I've found, from being in this world for several years.
Sure.
So this, though, requires us to not just mobilize for Election Day, but understand that politics and your government is taking action with or without you, whether or not you're participating, the other 364 days a year, not just on Election Day. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to engage people and empower them to understand that government is important, whether you like it or not, is part of your life, and it takes like a third of your money every year. So you should be participating in it. And it makes that argument way more saleable and palatable for people when you say, I also need you to help vote for me, please, because it's not a shoo-in like it was in the old district. So there's that. And I think kind of copy paste that with the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission. with the one caveat that I think the benefit of us doing this in a democratic way was very good, but a democracy, again, is only as strong as the people who participate. So what you saw, or at least from what I saw, is towards the end, the redistricting started to get a lot of comments that were partisan, both from the right and the left. And so I think that influenced the group's dynamic of the votes of the commission. And because it was the first commission, it sets the tone, and we got to give them some grace because they were the first and they are normal citizens just trying to serve their community in our state. But I think just to round this point off, the big thing is I think they kind of blew it with the Voting Rights Act, VRA districts. So for example, in our area, there's going to be, just in practical terms, the voter turnout in Oakland County, which is a mostly white suburb, because mind you, we live in Metro Detroit, which is according to the New York Times, most segregated metro area in the country. So we have several districts for state house and state senate that kind of are long ribbons that go from Oakland County into Detroit. And I think from a philosophical or theoretical perspective, that is a good move. But practically what that does is it disenfranchises a bunch of Black Detroit voters, because the voter turnout is generally higher in white suburban Oakland County than it is in Black City Detroit. So that kind of might be a miss on their part. But again, time will tell and the election will show us if that's the case or not.
And so, Charlotte, connected to that issue in many ways, but a separate issue in bulk is something that we talked about the last time we had you on the Megacast as well. And I want to give you some time to talk about the progress that may have been made in this realm since we last spoke, because of course, as you're running for office, and we do this with any candidate that would be on our show with issues that they are that are important to them and important to their campaign. Something that you brought up the last time you were on was the issue of fair housing, fair affordable housing being available in places like in Oakland County, like in the suburbs of Metro Detroit, that ultimately are very much connected to the great segregation between the city of Detroit and its metropolitan area. Has any progress been made on some of the housing voucher discrimination issues here in Oakland County that you touched on last time that you were on? And it's been a long time, so mind me, I don't have the exact date written down here when we last had you. But has any progress been made on, and if so, what progress or what discussions at least have been had at the county level on addressing housing discrimination and affordable housing?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that, because yes, that has been quite a heavy lift and we have made huge progress. And so again, I want to make sure I frame this in a context that's palatable for everybody.
Sure.
In that, one, as you were saying before the commercial break when I was listening, and Kurt Metzger is going to tell you about how Michigan has lost population, or there are more deaths in Michigan than in history. So that is emblematic. Second, Michigan is a state that is aging faster than the state of Florida. So that means, one, it's not that we have more 65 and up individuals in Michigan than Florida. It means that more people in Michigan that are here are 65 and up. And that's not happening because where in Florida, people are moving to Florida that are 65 and up. This is happening because in Michigan, this is happening because people that are under 65 are moving out of Michigan. So thinking about that broader global context, then you come into full view of the fact that housing prices are going skyrocketing here in Oakland County in particular, but throughout Michigan. So then talking about affordable and attainable housing really is the word we're using now, because affordable housing conjures up, housing projects for people that are making $0 a year. What we're really focusing on is people that are making 120% of the area median income. So it's families that are making like $80,000 to $90,000 a year, but still aren't able to afford a house in Oakland County. So being able to help people that make $80,000 to $90,000 a year or less be able to live here is becoming a problem. And that's particularly a problem for the working age population. So millennials like myself, people with families. So people with double earning household income are finding it harder. And then what you're seeing is that spilling over into businesses, where businesses in Oakland County before the pandemic, and as we kind of hopefully come out of it, are going to see that a lot of their workers live 45 minutes away in Macomb County. And just a comparison here real quick, when we were talking transit a couple of years in earnest around Metro Detroit, whether you like it or not is not the point. The point here is the biggest confluence of transit happening between the metro area, whether it's Detroit, Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, or Ann Arbor, when we were talking about the big transit plan, was not between Oakland County and Detroit down Woodward. It wasn't Gratiot from Macomb to Detroit. It wasn't to the airport. It wasn't into Ann Arbor. It was between M59 in Macomb County and Oakland County. So that's a huge symbolic thing that tells us that people work in Oakland County but cannot afford to live here, so they drive 45 minutes away in Macomb County to get home. So that quality of life for the region is something that we can't ignore any longer. So that's what we mean when we were talking attainable housing, just to give perspective. But then drilling down to what we've done. Yes, we passed the source of income protection ordinance, and that's being passed in several other communities. And source of income means people that are renting in Oakland County, which is about 160,000 families. So 160,000 families rent in Oakland County. And a third of the people that rent with housing choice vouchers, this is a thing that people can get discriminated with because of their source of income, is a housing choice voucher, a Social Security paycheck, or a veterans housing voucher. So these non-typical, if you will, types of paying for your rent, that source of income not coming from you working a job, that makes up almost 40, these three sources of income makes up almost 40% of the people in Oakland County who are renting, and almost a third of those people are 62 and up and using a housing choice voucher or Social Security to pay their rent. So this affects seniors greatly. So source of income is something in Oakland County that hurts a lot of seniors and lower income families that are working. And so what we did is we passed an ordinance that said, in Oakland County, if you're a landlord, you cannot deny someone access to housing simply because the source of income that they're using to pay is not what you'd expect, right? It's not a check from their bank account. It's a check from a type of, Social Security, housing choice voucher, or housing, it's called a HVASH for veterans. So that atypical source of income is what used to be why a lot of landlords would deny people rent, because there's an extra form to fill out. But that's no longer allowed in many communities in Oakland County, and we're building that. So that was a huge change, which again, it's one of these things talking about the common good that we're able to provide as a result of pragmatic nuts and bolts government, right? This is good for landlords because it allows them education, because in addition to passing the source of income ordinance, what we did is create educational opportunities and information seminars for landlords to understand what these vouchers do and how this extra source of income is good for them. Because during the pandemic, when people like me, who is a renter, was using money out of my bank account to pay my rent, I could have not paid my rent because there was a rent moratorium. But people who use source of income, like a voucher, like Social Security to pay their rent, that rent was being paid throughout. So that actually helped landlords. So the timing was fortuitous, but also, again, showing that common good, that landlords like this, people who use these vouchers to find housing like this, people that employ these folks that use these vouchers, which again is 160,000 families like this. So this is something that we were able to get done. So that was a great thing. And there's a lot of education that had to happen because, again, it's a mindset shift here in Oakland County from where we have been the last umpteen years, but a good step forward.
We're joined by Charlie Cavell, Oakland County Commissioner from District 18 on the Megacast. Charlie, just another minute or so with you before we'll say goodbye today. Anything else that you would like our audience to know this time?
Okay, so I'll say real quick, we're working, part 2 of housing is to make sure that housing is attainable for working families and millennials. We're working to make sure, as it relates to housing, that seniors are able to age in place here in Oakland County. And we're making sure that, as it relates to childcare, this is another big thing, that we want to make sure childcare is affordable for working families, and we want to make sure that childcare is accessible to families. So making sure that childcare businesses are able to expand their capacity and their workers are paid enough so that this is a career pathway. So Oakland County is working hard on attainable housing for the common good for most of our residents in multiple factions. And then second, we're working on childcare to make sure that it is affordable and accessible for those families that need help with that.
Charlie, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate your time and your insight on many of these different issues and programs here available in Oakland County.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. More information on oakgov.com, including, of course, information from the Oakland County Health Division on COVID-19, including these over 800,000 masks that are available for free to the county, these N95 and KN95 masks as well. has information at oakgov.com about Board of Commissioners meetings so that you can participate in your local government and have that discourse on these many different issues with people like Commissioner Charlie Cavell and others here in the Oakland County area. We're going to take a break. On the other side of the break, we'll stay right here in Oakland County, head over to Pontiac and speak with Dustin McClellan, the founder of the Pontiac Community Foundation. That's coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
The county.
Or the Huron River Watershed Council.
We work together to protect water resources for everyone.
Most of the pollution entering our rivers is carried by rainwater that runs off roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
A rain garden helps catch stormwater runoff.
Rain gardens and their plants help dirty runoff soak into the ground.
You can do your part to help keep our water clean.
Learn about rain gardens and native plants.
So consider a rain garden in your home landscaping.
Catch the runoff with a rain garden.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
I couldn't breathe at all. There was lots of talk about putting me on a ventilator. I thought I was gonna die. I was 39 weeks pregnant and had a scheduled C-section. During that time, I got COVID and was hospitalized for a month. I had a blood clot in my lungs. It caused me to go into right-sided heart failure. I was really scared. I kept texting my husband and my mom, telling them how scared I was, and I was worried that he was gonna grow up without a mom. And then I was worried if, when I did get home, that he wouldn't know who I was. You know, being 27 and a mom and a wife and having that all almost taken away from me. It's scary, and if a vaccine can prevent that from happening, why not? Get your vaccine. I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
Joining me now is Dustin McClellan, once again the founder and CEO of the Pontiac Community Foundation, as the foundation is partnering with multiple local businesses and major businesses that in the city of Pontiac to benefit the youth in the community and the greater community as well. Dustin, thank you for being with us again.
Tyler, it's so great to be back with you here on the Megacast, and appreciate your highlighting our work in Pontiac and what's happening in Pontiac from a broad sense as well.
Yeah, Pontiac is continuing to have a major resurgence. They're doing great things, and your organization definitely is building a lot of those partnerships and benefiting people all across the board in the city. So for those that aren't familiar, Dustin, with the Pontiac Community Foundation, or they haven't seen you on this program before and heard you talk about it, can you just give a brief overview of what the foundation is, and you as the founder, what the mission of the Pontiac Community Foundation is?
Absolutely. I appreciate that, Tyler. You know, we are proud to be celebrating 4 years of operation in the city of Pontiac. And our mission is to engage philanthropy, leadership, and collaboration to tackle Pontiac's most pressing issues. When we founded the organization, we felt as though there needed to be a body in the city serving as a neutral convener, a collaborator, a thought partner, a group being a catalyst for change in Pontiac. And so we set out to do just that, and we're proud about the success we've been able to accomplish through all of the ups and downs of the last 4 years with COVID-19 and our small businesses being in need and continuing to reach youth and seniors and families in the city. And of course, our ultimate vision is to see Pontiac as the premier place to live, work, and play, that the residents here would have a strong quality of life and be able to have all of the amenities and resources they need to thrive.
We're joined by Dustin McClellan, the founder and CEO of the Pontiac Community Foundation. And Dustin, last time that you had joined us back in October, the foundation at that time had begun a partnership with Reimagine Recreation as well as United Wholesale Mortgage to put forth some renovations on the UWM Sports Complex. Can you talk about the work that's been done at the sports complex and also the benefit that facility has to the youth in Pontiac and surrounding areas?
Absolutely. We're so grateful for the United Wholesale Mortgage team, the Reimagine Recreation team for, as they have taken on this sports complex that was formerly the Ultimate Soccer Arenas. They say we're going to continue operations for entities that play for pay, if you will, or pay for play, if you will, but we're also going to make sure that we have slots in their regular schedule for community members. And so we work diligently to connect them with community organizations, nonprofits, sports teams that had a need for a recreation space. And there are a number of entities that are operating out of the sports complex now. They've done a wonderful renovation of the facility, a brand new basketball and multi-court sports space. And it will soon be announcing some other entities that'll be moving into that space. I know that our city has been invited to use the space for the city's youth recreation program. And so it's an amazing opportunity for our local residents to be in a state-of-the-art facility. And we're so grateful for UWM's ongoing work in the city of Pontiac.
And on top of that, another important element that may be overlooked is that having a complex like the UWM sports complex there and having those opportunities for kids in the community, it also provides them with transportation back and forth, which can be critical. And for a lot of kids, either their parents or themselves are not able to have that reliable transportation from point A to point Z during their entire day, and this provides that opportunity and bridges that gap. Can you talk a little bit about the foundation's role in establishing those transportation partnerships to benefit not just the kids in Pontiac, but also adults and others in Pontiac as well that may be struggling with transportation?
Absolutely, Tyler. You know, we estimate that roughly 17% of Pontiac residents are without transportation. And so that's regular transportation to doctor's appointments and grocery stores, and of course to after school programs and youth recreation. And so we worked with M1 Concourse, that is also right on the south side of the city near UWM, to create a new initiative for transportation that we've entitled M1 Mobility. And the whole goal of that program was to partner our nonprofit philanthropic entity with M1 Concourse that wanted to have a greater charitable arm to provide transportation solutions for Pontiac residents through a shuttle service. And so we've started by working with after school programs that need to utilize facilities like UWM so that we can ensure that children have access to those programs. And we're so grateful for UWM's partnership and Concourse's partnership in that. We actually just this week had a vehicle donated by UWM to further extend the program, and we're excited about adding other needs onto that. And we have had a tremendous outpouring from community organizations and community members saying, hey, this is a need that we have across the city for senior services, for returning citizens, for a wide variety of those that are here in our city that have this need. And so we've just scratched the surface, and we look forward to expanding to meet that need on a wide scale here in the city.
We're joined by Dustin McClellan, founder and CEO of the Pontiac Community Foundation. You can learn more information on their website, pontiaccommunityfoundation.org. That's pontiaccommunityfoundation.org. And so in putting forth this program and partnering with the M1 Concourse and with other partners in the city on this transportation issue, both for the kids and for the adults and the general public, in doing so and analyzing the transportation situation in the city of Pontiac and in its neighboring areas where people are venturing in and out of Pontiac for work, for recreation, for other important purposes as well. When analyzing all that and with your partners coming up with this plan, what realization did you come to of just how much of an issue transportation is in a general sense for the population in Pontiac and surrounding areas? Even though it is a city that is a growing city and it's a city that is very much on the comeback, it can be tough for people in cities like Pontiac and other cities of its size and major cities in the U.S. to have that basic transportation infrastructure there. And so where did you kind of realize along the way that this was such a great need in the city?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tyler. As I mentioned, roughly 17% of Pontiac residents don't have regular access to transportation. And we're grateful for organizations like SMART that help begin to help those that are in need. But we, along with M1 Concourse, met with a lot of our nonprofit organizations, a lot of our civic organizations, our community leaders. And the recurring theme that came from those leaders was the need for transportation. And we know that this has been a hot button topic in Pontiac and Oakland County for many, many years. And as we talked with our partners at M1 Concourse, we said, we may not be able to solve the entire issue, but we can make a dent in it. And instead of doing more studies and more conversations, we said, let's jump right in. And so that's why this after school shuttle service is so valuable, and the other tiers we'll add to the program will be valuable, because our work at the Pontiac Community Foundation has constantly been about bringing solutions that help everyday residents on a regular basis. And we hope to continue doing that through this initiative and others.
We're joined by Dustin McClellan, founder and CEO of the Pontiac Community Foundation. Learn more on their website, pontiaccommunityfoundation.org. And Dustin, in addition to your work, of course, with the foundation, you've also done more important work in the city as well, being part of the 13-member transition team for the new incoming Mayor Tim Greimel, who recently took office. We actually have him coming up next on the Megacast. We have him in the Zoom now, so we'll bring him in just briefly as well. So, and while we do that, talk about being a part of that transition team and the importance of your role and the other 12 members' role in making that a smooth transition from Mayor Waterman, the previous mayor's administration in the city, to Mayor Greimel's administration now in the city, especially given the momentum of Pontiac in the past several months and certainly in the past several years.
Well, Tyler, you hit the nail on the head there. We're really at a crossroads as a city, and we have tremendous opportunity right now, right before us. So many resources pouring in, unfortunately, but also fortunately, because of COVID, we have an opportunity to make broader investments into our city. We have the two businesses we mentioned, UWM and M1 Concourse, along with others. And now we've elected a new mayor who is serious about moving forward the priorities that everyday residents have, like getting the basic business of the city done properly and at a high level. And alongside of him being elected, we have a brand new council in its entirety that is also saying, we're ready to roll up our sleeves. We're going to put aside the issues of the past and move forward in making a difference in the city. And so myself, along with a tremendous group of individuals that are on this transition team, have been working diligently along with the administration to lay out all of the plans, all of the strategies, all of the action items that need to happen over the next year and over the next 4 years. And we're excited to do that work and hand that off to the administration as they seek to move the city forward in a very, very positive and substantive direction. And we are excited about it. The community is excited about it. And there's a palpable energy. And we look forward to all of the good change that's going to happen in the days ahead.
And Mayor Greimel, for you, just briefly, while we have you on with Dustin, having him and having those other 12 members of your transition team in place, especially given Dustin's role with the Pontiac Community Foundation that is doing such important work in the city, how important is it to have those pillars of the community be taking a serious part in the role of transitioning the previous mayor's administration to your administration, not only to make a smooth transition in leadership from the programs and initiatives that had been put forth and been in progress from the previous administration, but also, like Dustin said, to lay the groundwork and lay out the map for your administration's initiatives going forward and plans for continuing to build a great future in Pontiac?
It's absolutely essential, Tyler. It really is critical work that the transition team is doing. I'm very fortunate to have such a talented leader like Dustin being the chair of the transition team. But I'm also fortunate to have, and the community is fortunate, more importantly, to have a tremendously talented group of people on the transition team. These are folks who include community activists, faith leaders, people with in-depth human resource professional backgrounds. It includes business leaders here in the local community. It's a very diverse group by every measure, including and especially professional background, professional experience. And the community is very fortunate to have these very talented folks who are dedicating an enormous amount of their time to making sure that this transition works effectively and smoothly. And perhaps even more importantly, laying the groundwork for policy proposals and other longer-term solutions that will deliver results for the community so that we're investing in our young people, making sure that we're improving the quality of life for everyone and expanding economic opportunity for all.
Mayor Granville, thank you. We'll be back with you in just a couple of minutes. Before we let you go, Dustin, I just want to touch on, you were recently recognized by Crane's Detroit Business as part of their Elite 40 Under 40 in Metro Detroit. Can you talk about the honor, what it means for you personally, as well as the recognition and how that brings awareness to the great work that's being done by the Pontiac Community Foundation?
I was delighted and a little surprised to receive the award from Crane's Business Detroit, and excited and honored to receive the award personally, but more importantly, I think Crane's was excited to highlight Pontiac, highlight the work we're doing, highlight the leaders in Pontiac. And, you know, the whole reason, one of the major reasons we started the Pontiac Community Foundation is because Pontiac has historically been overlooked, historically been marginalized, historically been disadvantaged. And I'm excited to be a small part of ensuring that Pontiac is on the map in southeastern Michigan and even beyond that on the world stage, because we have a world-class city with world-class residents, and our future is very bright.
Dustin, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate your time and telling us about these great initiatives. Of course, the improvements that have been made at the United Wholesale Mortgage Sports Complex, as well as the transportation program in partnership with M1 Concourse. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Always great to be with you.
A message from the staff of Michigan's Crime Victim Compensation Program.
Anyone can be a victim of crime
and suffer lasting trauma, physically, emotionally, and financially.
But you are not alone.
If you're struggling financially due to a crime,
we're here
for you.
Find out if you qualify for crime victim compensation.
Call 877-251-7373 or visit michigan.gov/crime-victim.
A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Victim Services.
If you are struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to a $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit or call toll-free at 833-511-0311.
A public service announcement from 89.3 Lakes FM. As we begin the second half of our show today, we bring in Kurt Metzger, demographer and founder of Data Driven Detroit, with us on the Megacast. Kurt, thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I appreciate having you on. So for the first time in recorded history in the state of Michigan, we've had a year in 2020 with more deaths than births. Now, initially, knee-jerk reaction, the low-hanging fruit here is to assume that's because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Is that the case, or are there other reasons that are a greater factor behind that, or an additional factor behind what that statistic may be driven by?
Yes, there are other factors, and just to make the point that even taking the COVID deaths, at least as Michigan Department of Health and Human Services have coded them, if we took the COVID deaths out of the mix, we would still have more deaths than births in Michigan. So a lot of people who will say, okay, once COVID is done, this whole trend will be gone and everything will be fine. Not true at all. What's happening is we've been seeing this slow and steady decrease in births in the state, combined with a slow and steady increase in deaths. And this is, partially, talking the births overall, we're talking about lower birth rates. Women, certainly once education became more and more a factor, and women were going to college, going to graduate school, going to medical school, professional degrees, they have slowly but surely delayed marriage, and even with that, delayed further childbearing. And many are choosing not to. So what we've been seeing is this decrease in births. We've also, Michigan has even more of a factor because we lose so many of our young people are moving out. They're going to other states. So people in their childbearing years, women in their childbearing years, the numbers have been going down. The percentage of women in their childbearing years has been going down. So it's kind of that combination of we have fewer women in their childbearing years, plus we have a lower birth rate. So we're seeing this continuous drop. On the other side, we have an older population. Michigan is one of the aging states, fastest aging states, because of this loss of the young people, because of the lower births, and because we are majority white population, which is older. So Michigan is getting older. We have probably, it's something like 25 counties in the state that have median ages above 50. When your median age is above 50, you're not having a lot of children. And so we've kind of been seeing this getting closer and closer. Back in 2019, there was only about an 8,000 difference between births and deaths. Back in 1990, there was a 75,000 difference. So you see this loss, and now 2020 just pushed it over the edge.
We're joined by Kurt Metzger, founder of Data Driven Detroit, joining us on the Megacast. And just for some reference here in the local area, Wayne and Genesee counties lost 1,269 and 1,220 people, respectively, followed by separately counted in the city of Detroit, not included in Wayne County's numbers, a 723 person loss in the city of Detroit. For reference of births versus deaths in Oakland County, a 609 person difference, more deaths than births here in Oakland County, where we originate our broadcast, and only for reference, 7 of Michigan's 83 counties saw an increase in population in the 2020 census results. And so that's kind of what we're looking into. And Kurt, also something that we saw a lot during the earlier portions of the COVID-19 pandemic, as people were either out of their jobs and looking for a change of scenery, or people were fed up with restrictions in the state of Michigan versus in other states in the region or across the U.S. A lot of people were moving as well. How much of a factor was people moving out of the state for a variety of different reasons in the changes of these numbers ultimately in the 2020 census?
Well, 2020, the state actually picked up a few people. It came actually a little bit higher than what we had anticipated. But since, the problem with Michigan has always been that we send more people away to other states than we get in. We are an out-migrant state. So it varies based on the economy, how many people we're losing. And certainly in recent years, it's been much better. Our losses have been maybe averaging about 7,000 a year, as opposed to back in recessions when we were losing up to 80,000 a year. So there's that. I mean, that obviously plays into it. Michigan is not able to attract younger people. And we're also, another factor is the number of immigrants. Michigan has been able to average about 18,000 immigrants a year. Directly, and then we get some secondary immigrants go to other states and then move to Michigan. Because of immigration numbers down, that additional factor to Michigan has dropped. So we're not getting the immigrant numbers that we used to. And immigrants tend to they tend to come here in their childbearing years. They tend to be younger, and they also tend to have higher birth rates. So there are a number of factors that are just kind of playing against Michigan. And as you point out, I think a lot of people did leave. There is that hope that people who could do work remotely would be more apt to want to come to maybe Michigan because of our lakes and our climate and everything else. People who like that kind of living would be more apt to come to Michigan, but we're not seeing those numbers either. We are seeing them go Minnesota has done a good job of attracting. Wisconsin has done a good job. So there are northern states that are able to attract and have been very good at attracting people because of winter sports and other kinds of activities. Michigan, even with Pure Michigan and everything, we don't seem to have that same attraction. And again, as you said, 76 of the 83 counties had more deaths than births. Generally, we're seeing on an average year, we're seeing about 50 counties with more deaths than births. So, outside of, we have better than 2/3 of the state. It's just more or less one county after another losing population, not being able to attract population. And so it just seems to me that the state has a lot of work to do to try to figure out how do we start to turn these trends around.
We're joined by Kurt Metzger, founder of Data Driven Detroit and also a demographer for Data Driven Detroit, joining us on the Megacast to talk about some of the changes in population recorded in 2020 U.S. Census data. And so taking all those factors into consideration and recognizing, as you said, some of the differences in the numbers in neighboring states in the region like Wisconsin and like Minnesota, is this commonality of is the commonality rather there in terms of neighboring states in our region having numbers like this in the past or in recent times? Given that Michigan, this is the first time since in its recorded history that they've recorded more deaths than births in the state. Is that something more common in other states in the region or across the board in the U.S., or is this something that is relatively rare across the board in recorded population numbers?
Well, it's become more common in basically states surrounding Michigan. I mean, it's more the Midwest and Northeast. So certainly Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, these are all primarily white. These are whiter states in terms of the population, which means that they're older. Again, they're the states that tend to be losing population or growing very slowly and certainly losing representation in Congress. So we are part of that. You're also seeing those in the northeastern United States where they're even a large, more white in terms of their population and also aging. So it is that, again, it's this, what we've been seeing nationally, the trends are population leaving the Midwest and the Northeast, heading south, heading southwest, heading west. Although you're seeing some interesting migration changes with a lot of people leaving California and heading to Montana and Nevada and to New Mexico and on and on. They're coming inland. A lot of that because of immigration and again, policies and other issues at the state level. But it tends to be, Michigan is not that unique in terms of its neighboring states. It's just that when you look at Michigan and you look at so much empty territory and so many counties that are just losing population, losing economic base, not being able to attract people, the question is what happens to the Upper Peninsula outside of Marquette and Houghton counties that have universities? All the other counties have been losing for quite a while. The same thing is if you look at the northeastern part of the Lower Peninsula and you look at those counties along the southern border of Michigan, they're all just kind of suffering. And we have all this land and everybody is obviously saying that by 2050, Michigan will be the magnet for all those, all the climate problems and people moving to Michigan because we will be the best state for climate. But in the meantime, we got 30 years to think about what are we going to do to try to re-engage the economies and try to get people moving into some of these areas that are slowly disappearing.
And so, Kurt, that brings up an interesting question too, because these drops in population from the outside looking in, for someone that doesn't really understand the implications of that on a state level and certainly on a federal level, they may think, okay, we're going to lose a couple of seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. We have a slightly smaller population. Maybe our schools on the local level are going to lose some of that basic funding that they get from tax dollars in our city. But for places that are near major cities or in high population centers, that might not be as great of a factor to them as, like you said, those smaller cities in the Northern Peninsula, or even those smaller cities locally that have a lot of reliance on those federal dollars and those state dollars. So when we look at these population changes from 2010 to 2020 census and see some of those dips in numbers, particularly near those areas with smaller populations or less resources from the onset, despite the population, what kind of residual effects can that drop in population from a funding standpoint from the federal and state level have on those communities as their population dwindles?
Well, it certainly is going, as you say. I mean, federal funding, even federal funding that comes through the state and then is distributed, is based on census numbers in various aspects. So it's total population, it's poverty population, it's youth population, a number of other things. So obviously, as those numbers go down, the funding formulas kick in and the funding goes down as well. So as far as federal funds and even state funds, that's going to affect some of these areas. What the problem, in addition, is that Michigan doesn't seem to give up its own, everybody wants to have their own community. They want to have their own school district. They want to have, everybody, nobody's going to give up what they've got. And so you're seeing, even though the population has dropped, and especially the population in many of the areas of the state, school districts aren't disappearing. All these various areas that need funding keep advocating for money with decreasing populations. Something has to give. And I think, we're still, even in Southeast Michigan, we're, while we saw some more deaths than births this time around, we're still kind of holding our own. We're not growing quickly. We're kind of staying relatively constant. SEMCOG predicts a little bit of growth, but it's that kind of collaboration and that's working together. And I think it becomes more important that we start thinking about, do we start to collapse? Do we start to put school districts together? Do we need to start? It's kind of this: how do regions start to work together? How do communities start to work together? We cannot afford to be independent operators, all fighting for limited dollars. Right now, the state's flush because of all the funds that have come from the feds. A couple of years, those are going to be gone. What are we going to do about it? And I think that Michigan needs to look at these demographic trends and see how those are going to affect economic trends going forward. What is it going to mean when the state is distributing money? Are we going to keep sending money to the counties that are getting smaller and smaller? What do we start to do? And I think that needs to be, there's some hard decisions that need to be made.
Yeah, it brings up an interesting quandary, too, for those that are representing those smaller counties and those that are representing those counties that are seeing that slow growth still, but not significant growth in the future when they're making those decisions and discussing those decisions, particularly in budget discussions at the state level and at the federal level going forward. And so, of course, we're joined by Kurt Metzger, a demographer and founder of Data Driven Detroit, joining us on the Megacast. We recently, of course, had the release of the congressional maps for the state of Michigan, for State House and Senate, as well for the U.S. House. On top of that, by the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission, of course, with residual lawsuits resulting from that as well, from those opposing their maps. That among those, the Detroit caucuses lawsuit has been dropped by the Michigan Supreme Court. That happened earlier on this week. When you study these maps, what do you think about the job that the commission has done in providing new maps for the next 10 years that are properly representing the populations of these given areas, especially given the changes that Michigan's population has undergone, particularly the changes in the diversity of the state of Michigan's population?
Well, the one thing I want to do is congratulate the commission and also give credit to the state of Michigan for trying to get rid of political gerrymandering and take it out of. So, for Michigan, which tends to follow the trends most often, this was something that showed us to be quite at the head of the class, more or less, to put it together. And so, when you look at also when you start looking at the distribution of diversity in this region, and you, particularly in this region, you see it in other areas, but more Southeast Michigan, and then in particular cities, maybe Flint, Saginaw Bay, Muskegon, a couple, but those are still fairly small populations of minority groups. I think the question, and I still have some concerns about this idea that the commission was told that African Americans could elect their preferred candidate with a 40% or 40 to 45% of the district. I'm not so sure of that, and I think that the data that were used were so limited and were not strong enough to really make those kinds of opinions. So I think that that's going to be problematic, and certainly when you look at the districts, there are very few districts within Detroit, and certainly that's partially attributable to the fact that Detroit's population keeps getting smaller and smaller. It can't even in and of itself be one congressional district, even if they wanted to. And when you start looking at the state house and state senate, the fact is you've had a lot of migration out of the city into the suburbs. So, and we're seeing that in other parts of the state, that we don't have those concentrations necessarily, that there is a much greater movement. And so the districts had to take that into account. I think that they could have run the percentage of African Americans up a little bit in some, that they really did cut the number of minority districts. But I have to, and I do, when I looked at the U.S. congressional districts in Oakland County, is it part of 6 of them? Seems a little bit much. That's cutting up the county a little more than I would necessarily think is necessary. But I think they did overall, I have to say that they did a great job. And I think that they have, by all measures, they have cut down the preference, the party preference in terms of the way the numbers played out, just kind of putting back voting patterns on top of the new districts. I have to believe that they've done a pretty good job. I know that people are not going to be happy in certain areas, but you can't please everybody. I think for a first shot at this, and for 11, what was it? Oh, what was it, 11 people, 13 people? Can't remember. Who had no experience in any of this before. I think they did a marvelous job.
We're joined by Kurt Metzger, demographer and founder of Data Driven Detroit. Kurt, thank you very much for joining us and talking over this complicated information. That it's really interesting when you dive into these numbers and you consider some of the factors that went into these changes, what these changes may be indicating for the future as well. You can really get into a long conversation about where Michigan's population is right now and where we're going to go in the future. And of course, those additional implications that all that data has on things like our representation in government through new systems like the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission. Anything else for us today before we let you go, Kurt?
No, and I just appreciate the fact that you see that data are important, and I just feel that we need to look at this information. This is something that is a trend that isn't about to change unless we do something very drastic, and that the state of Michigan and local leaders and others need to start looking at data and trying to understand what does it tell us? What does it tell us about what's going on now? But as you said, particularly, what do we do about the future? These are not trends that are going to change on their own. This is something that Michigan needs to start taking seriously. And again, we need to start taking seriously, do we need all these independent school districts, communities? We need to start thinking better, how do we govern, and what are we looking toward the future? And this is for Oakland County, but it's for the state as a whole. I think leadership needs to start paying much more attention to these numbers.
Kurt, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you did. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Now is Laura Olafetto. She is the president and programs co-chair at the Association for Women in Communications Detroit chapter, with us on the Megacast. Laura, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with your audience.
Appreciate your time and appreciate you telling us more about the organization. Let's start off with that. Tell us about some of the work that the Association for Women in Communications Detroit chapter does.
Well, let me start by telling you a little bit about the national organization, because we are the Detroit chapter of a national organization that was founded in 1909 in the state of Washington with a group of journalism students who were encouraged by their professor to join together and start a newsletter, and that's kind of how the whole thing started. Theta Sigma Phi was it was called a women's fraternity at the time, and they espoused two main missions. One of them, I'm here, your previous guest was mentioning FOIA, which is something that we're very committed to, freedom of information and protection of the First Amendment. The Detroit chapter was founded 83 years ago in 1939, and we are one of the largest and strongest chapters in the nation. Our tagline is called Connecting Communications Professionals in the D. And since there is not a chapter in Ohio, we also have members from Ohio that have joined this. We're the only chapter in Michigan. And we've also incorporated Ohio. So we're kind of a multi-state chapter. We offer programs that support the founding mission, of course. In fact, we have a program coming up in a couple of weeks where one of the lead reporter on the Robert Anderson story is going to talk to us about uncovering that story, that scandal, if you will. And she's an investigative journalist who is in the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. And besides professional development programming, we also spotlight local women in communications. We have a large mission for networking and connecting. We have a student initiatives program, and this month, since we are in National Mentoring Month, I thought I'd mention that we are also very much committed to mentoring the young professionals that are in our organization. And finally, we do have a community outreach program. We've been focused on literacy. Tyler, I'm sure you know that in Detroit in particular, we have an issue with literacy. So we're committed to communications in all facets.
We're joined by Laura Oliveto, the president and the program's co-chair at the Association for Women in Communications Detroit chapter, joining us on the Megacast. And so, Laura, you have a really interesting background yourself. Been a communications professional for decades. You're the vice president of communications and PR at SSDM, which is a digital marketing agency in Troy, and you have extensive experience of more than 25 years in digital marketing in the communications industry. At what point in your career did you join this organization, and what prompted you to become involved with the association?
Well, I was in PR, and some of the journalists that I dealt with in my day-to-day suggested that I take a look at the Association for Women in Communications. And so I joined in 2011 and immediately joined the board of directors as the secretary. And as recording secretary, I attended board meetings, I made notes, I distributed minutes, and I got to learn and know everything that was going on in the organization. The following year, they asked me to be the president, and I was a little taken aback because I felt fairly new to the organization. But somebody recognized leadership ability, and so for the next 5 years, I was the president of the organization. We were in a tough spot at that time. We needed to boost our membership. We needed a stronger board of directors. We needed better programming, and so I tackled the priorities one by one, and we became a much stronger organization, and we got a lot of members back, and so I'm very proud of that. And then I relinquished the presidency for a few years, and now this year in 2020, they asked me to, actually in 2021, asked me to come back and lead the organization again.
And so, Laura, one pillar of the mission of the Association of Women in Communications is to promote leadership and positioning its members on the forefront of the evolving industry. And so what sort of work does the organization do with those that are beginning their careers? Because communications stretches across so many different individual sectors, whether it be journalism or advertising and PR or other sectors of entertainment. There are so many different avenues that people that your organization would be supporting can take in their careers. What are some of the ways that you provide those supports early on for some of these women that are going into these highly competitive career fields?
Well, you're absolutely right, Tyler. And that is one of the things that makes the AWC very different from any other organization. First of all, we are committed to supporting women in communication, and we are a multidiscipline organization. So we do have journalists and authors and sales and marketing professionals and folks that are in, as you mentioned, all facets of communication. So what we do to support these women is professional development programs, which, as you mentioned, I am also co-chair of our professional development series. And we have a very active student initiative. So we reach out to, we have several chapters at universities around town, and we we do plan specific programs for the student chapters and the student members of our chapter. A couple of months ago, we did one on LinkedIn, which helped the young professionals understand the power of LinkedIn and how to use it. We have one coming up in a couple weeks about internships. Right now, with so many jobs being open, we want corporations and companies to be thinking about interns and making way for the young people coming out of college right now, giving them an opportunity to see what it's like on the day-to-day working in a communications field or in a company in a communications capacity. So, and we mentor the young professionals in our organization to help them in any way we can. We provide them with a job board. We provide them with mentoring programs. We provide them with referrals. We let people know at any time that when they have an opening that they should consider one of our members, because they're young professionals and they're very good.
We're joined by Laura Oliveto, the president and the co-chair of programs at the Association for Women in Communications Detroit chapter. You can learn more information by visiting their website at womcomdetroit, WOMCOM, Detroit.org. Learn more about everything that goes into, of course, their member benefits, their upcoming events. They have a blog as well, and an advocacy page. A lot that you can learn about the Association for Women in Communications Detroit chapter by visiting womcomdetroit.org. And so you mentioned with those internships, getting that hands-on experience for young professionals, getting those, of course, the networking element of it is so important. During the pandemic, especially over the last couple of years where there's been a lot of change in all industries, especially in communications-related industries as well. A lot of layoffs, a lot of changes in job positions, and in some situations, a bit of scarcity at certain points in time. How much more important has your work been, or how has your organization's approach to its work building those connections, building those contacts, helping these young professionals and these established professionals continue to make those connections and gain those experiences? How has that been altered or changed or innovated during the pandemic?
Oh, Tyler, that's such a loaded question, but in a nutshell, because we're so committed to networking, and because networking, when we survey our membership and ask them what is most important to them about the organization, number one at the top of their list is always networking. So, and we've been hampered because typically every month we have either a professional development program or we have a networking mixer event. And while we've continued to host those events virtually, what we hear from our members all the time when we do get the opportunity to get together is, oh my gosh, it's so good to see people in person. So we're looking forward to the end of COVID so that we can all get back to connecting personally. We did some outdoor things. One of our members is the communications director of the Detroit Riverfront Conservancy. So a bunch of us went down to the riverfront in the summertime and did got outside and got down to the riverfront, and we're so excited to see what's going on down there. So we're doing outdoor things when we can, and we're doing virtual things when we can't. And we're punting, I mean, it's a difficult situation, and I can't express enough how much I'm hoping that we're almost at the end of it.
You're listening to your radio homes for the Megacast, 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. Joining us currently is Laura Oliveto, the president and programs co-chair of the Association for Women in Communications Detroit chapter. You can learn more information by visiting their website at womcomdetroit.org. Again, that is womcomdetroit.org, WOMCOM Detroit.org. And so you mentioned you got many great programs that are coming up and events coming up on Tuesday, February 8th from 7 p.m. to 8:30 is your organization's chat with Detroit News reporter Kim Kozlowski, who of course broke the story on the abuse perpetrated by Dr. Robert Anderson at the University of Michigan. That'll be a great discussion, really informative look into investigative journalism in the modern age for professionals all across the communications sector. If people would like to attend that event, people would like to participate in that event or in other events or other programs within your organization, how can they go about getting involved?
Well, you mentioned the website, and that is our hub for information and registration and everything that you need or that your audience would need to contact us or to attend one of our programs or to become a member is all right there on the website. We keep it up very regularly. Our blogs are always changing. We've got a whole spotlight series on women in media in Detroit. The most recent one is Linda Solomon, who's an award-winning photojournalist. Carol Kane has been highlighted. Right now, I think we're up to well over a dozen women in communications that we've spotlighted, and their blogs are all there. Very interesting women and very interesting stories. So if nothing else, go to the website and check out our blogs in the media spotlight section.
Laura, we appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us and telling us about all the great programs and resources available through the Association of Women in Communications Detroit chapter.
Thank you, Tyler. I really appreciate your time and the attention of your audience.
Whether you're the city,
the county,
or the Huron River Watershed Council.
As partners working together to protect our water resources, we agree.
Pet waste is a source of harmful bacteria in the Huron River.
When it's left on the ground, it can wash into the storm drains.
These lead directly to our streams. No filters, no treatment.
Here's one thing we know that can help keep our water clean.
Pick up pet waste and trash it.
Pick up pet waste and trash it.
So pick up pet waste and trash it.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe. You can learn more about our show by visiting our website at civiccentertv.com and clicking on our Megacast link, where we have links to every single one of our partnering television, radio, and web outlets that join us every single day, as well as links for all of our full shows and each individual interview on demand, civiccentertv.com/Megacast. Joining us now is David Silver, the Executive Director of Detroit Horsepower, one of 274 charities and nonprofits here in the Metro Detroit area where we originate our broadcast every day, affiliated with Share Detroit, and you can find more information about them on sharedetroit.org, as well as those 273 other charities and nonprofits as well. David, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So first off, tell us a little bit about Detroit Horsepower, about your nonprofit organization, its goals, its mission, and how it serves our local area.
Yeah. Well, since 2015, Detroit Horsepower has been bringing young people from the city of Detroit to existing partner horse farms around Southeast Michigan for free summer horse camps and an after-school program. We love all the amazing things we get to do with horses, riding, teaching about horse management, bringing in guest speakers to talk about different equine professions. but our real purpose is the life lessons and social emotional development that horses can provide, specifically 5 traits that spell out the acronym PERKS with a C. We teach perseverance, empathy, responsible risk-taking, confidence, and self-control. Those 5 guide everything that we do.
We're joined by David Silver. He is the executive director of Detroit Horsepower, joining us on the Megacast. And so, how do these programs work to incorporate all of those lessons into one program that's ultimately still centered around kids interacting with horses and riding horses as well?
Yeah, typically we have multiple activities going on simultaneously. So a group may be riding, a group may be helping with barn chores or other, the hard work involved with taking care of horses. And another group is likely working with horses on the ground, maybe grooming or leading horses, learning about different specialties in the horse profession. And we build in a lot of time for reflection centered on those personal growth characteristics so that we're making connections between our experiences with horses and our everyday lives.
So you founded this organization in 2015. Before that, you were an elementary school teacher in the city of Detroit. And so, David, for you, what inspired you back in 2015, 7 years ago at this point, to form this organization, and what really inspired using horseback riding and horse care as that vehicle for some of these life lessons and these enriching activities for kids in the city?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. Horses were a huge part of my life growing up. I'm actually not from Michigan. I grew up in the suburbs of New York City and was incredibly privileged that my family had horses and we traveled and competed. I had access to great instruction, and it was just something we did as a family and really took for granted. It wasn't until I became a Teach for America Corps member and moved to Michigan in 2012 and have been living in the city of Detroit ever since that I was immersed in the research on social emotional learning and the role that character education can play in successful outcomes for young people. And that's when the stars really aligned for me that these skills, like the ones we talked about earlier, really matter for long-term outcomes for kids, that horses were the opportunity that I had to develop those critical success skills, and that young people like my students in Detroit would ordinarily never have access to the enriching opportunities that horses could provide. So that's why I decided to step outside the classroom. I left teaching in the fall of 2014 and incorporated Detroit Horsepower as a 501c3 nonprofit by early in 2015, and we've gone on an exciting journey ever since.
You can learn more information at DetroitHorsepower.org. That is DetroitHorsepower.org, or by visiting ShareDetroit.org and searching in their list of nonprofits and charities for Detroit Horsepower. And horsepower in that search will need to be 2 separate words, horse and power. Detroit Horsepower on ShareDetroit.org or DetroitHorsepower.org to learn more information. And so, David, how did your experience working as an educator in the Teach for America program help to inform your journey informing Detroit Horsepower and these programs and centering it in the city of Detroit as well? Because often what's great about this organization and other organizations that are similar is that they're providing activities outside of the regular school day, outside of the realm of what you typically learn in school, but associating those principles into something outside of the classroom that many may take for granted if they're not in that similar situation where these families, to no fault of their own, may not be able to provide those sort of opportunities to their children because of means that are out of their control. So how did that experience, being in Teach for America and working toward that goal of achieving greater equity in education all across our country here, help to inform your journey forming this organization?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I definitely had access to great professional development, and that was a huge education for me about the research literature on social emotional learning. And the more that I was talking with students in my classroom about perseverance or self-control or empathy, when I looked for personal connections in my own life, I consistently went back to my experiences with horses. But to your point about how under-resourced our communities are and the significant barriers to success for young people, I did see a need for more enriching opportunities outside of the school day to wrap our students and ultimately their communities in more layers of support. And one additional thing that's unique about horses is not just how they can shape our lives as individuals, but horses take up a lot of space. They have a significant land use, and Detroit also needs creative solutions that turn vacant land into a community asset. And so that has always been Detroit Horsepower's goal, is to truly scale the accessibility of horses in Detroit's future. Our goal is to construct an urban equestrian center to turn vacant land into something valuable for residents. And that's a goal we're really excited that is coming closer to reality.
Yeah, it's really good to hear that, and that is such another interesting take that's being put into power here. The Detroit Horsepower in the city is converting some of that open land in the city of Detroit, and some of that land's been converted from the days of blight and other issues into something that's useful for the community, not just another neighborhood that's being built, or all these additional homes that are being put up that are frankly not attainable usually for people in those communities. It's something that's actually benefiting that community, and that's so huge. We're joined by David Silver, the executive director of Detroit Horsepower, on the Megacast. More information on their website at DetroitHorsepower.org. And so, David, if people are interested in getting someone in their family or someone else that they may know, maybe a student of theirs, another family member of theirs potentially involved in some of these programs, how can they go about doing that?
Yeah, the first step to get involved in Detroit Horsepower's programming is to contact, reach out. Our contact information is on the website. There's a contact page. Would love to hear from families or interested students. The first way to get involved is usually our summer horse camps. That's our 5-day introductory program, and that gives a taste of riding, horse care, and the life lessons they can teach us. From there, if students have participated in summer camp and want to deepen their involvement, then we do have an intensive year-round after-school program, and students can apply to join that, especially if they've already participated in summer camp.
And so, David, on top of that, like many nonprofits and charities all across the board here in our local area and the state of Michigan, all across the country and the world, they need that support from their community in order to provide these great services to the community. What are the best ways at this time and in typical times in the past and in, of course, in the future, that our community can help support Detroit Horsepower and the great opportunities that they're providing to kids in Detroit?
Yeah. I have to say that volunteers do play a critical role in Detroit Horsepower's success. There's a volunteer application form on the contact page of our website as well, like you've already said, DetroitHorsepower.org. And that also has more information about sponsorship opportunities. $500 sponsors the cost for a student to participate in a week of summer horse camp. So there's more information available about that on our website. And we will also, if COVID allows, we'll look forward to resuming some of the impactful fundraising events that we've enjoyed before the pandemic. May 13th, 2022 is our next annual gala, and would love for the community to join us, especially if they're interested in learning more and supporting our important work.
Yeah, that 2022 gala, May 13th at 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Rooster Tail in Detroit. $150 per person. Formal invitation will follow soon. You can get more information by going to their website, DetroitHorsepower.org/events, or go to DetroitHorsepower.org, scroll over About, and click on Events. David, just another few minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. Anything else at this time that you would like our audience to know about your organization, or other topics related to Detroit Horsepower that we haven't spoken about today?
Well, we've really covered a lot of ground when it comes to the current work that we do, supporting the needs of students today. I'm really glad that's been the priority of our conversation. But it is an exciting time for our trajectory, as we have secured a 14-acre vacant land site on the west side of Detroit. It used to be a school, but unfortunately burned down 10 years ago. And we've partnered with Detroit Public Schools Community District to reactivate this large open space into our future urban equestrian center. We have an architect on board that's working with the community on a design that meets the needs of horses and residents. We'll be going through city government approval later in 2022, and we are in the quiet phase of a capital campaign to allow us to break ground in 2023 and open by 2024.
That's great news. We're looking forward to that, and of course to your annual gala coming up in May 13th, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Rooster Tail in Detroit. You can get tickets and more information by visiting Detroit Horsepower's website at detroithorsepower.org or by going to sharedetroit.org to learn more information about of course, Detroit Horsepower, how you can support the organization, volunteer opportunities, donation opportunities, providing items to their organization and other organizations as well at sharedetroit.org. But for Detroit Horsepower information specifically, detroithorsepower.org. David, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it. Again, one more time, detroithorsepower.org for more information on the nonprofit organization. Big thank you to David for joining us today on the show to talk about this 501c3 nonprofit organization in Detroit. That is going to do it for today's edition of the Megacast. Just a few more minutes in the show, so I want to give a big thank you to everybody that joined us on today's edition of the Megacast. Of course, a big thank you to David Silver, the executive director and the founder of Detroit Horsepower, for being with us on the program. A big thank you as well to Laura Oliveto, the president and programs co-chair of the Association for Women in Communications Detroit chapter, as well as Kurt Metzger, the founder of Data Driven Detroit, and Dustin McClellan, the founder of the Pontiac Community Foundation, for joining us, as well as Oakland County Commissioner Charlie Cavell from District 18, our guests on today's edition of the Megacast. If you missed any of those interviews, or you're just tuning into our show now here in the last couple minutes of this Tuesday edition of the Megacast, don't have to fear. You can find all of those episodes on our website later on this afternoon, civiccentertv.com/megacast, where we post every single one of these episodes, every single one of our full interviews on demand, so you can view them on your own time, because we know it's tough. It's 10 a.m. to 12 noon. It's right in the thick of the workday. Every day it can be tough to stay with us for the entire 2 hours, or tune in to us during our regular show, and maybe even during our live to tape replays in places such as Orion Neighborhood Television out there in Lake Orion and Orion Township, airing daily at 1 p.m. live to tape. So go to our website, civiccentertv.com. Click on our Megacast link. You'll be able to find us on demand by clicking a couple other links to either watch full interviews or watch full episodes right there on our page. And in addition, we have links to every single one of our partnering television, radio, and web outlets that join us every day, so you can learn more about the ways that they're serving their local community, and of course find all their additional great programming that they air on top of the Megacast every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Of course, also on our website at civiccentertv.com, highly encourage you to travel over to our coronavirus page and learn more about the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Stay up to date on this information. It's, of course, been constantly changing over these nearly 2 years we've been in this pandemic. It's going to continue to change as we slowly but surely move our way outside of this crisis. civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. We have links to the CDC, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and the Oakland County Health Division, so you can learn more about everything you need to know about COVID-19. A big thank you as well to our crew for making this show happen today. Our technical director, Calvin Brown, with me in the studio for the 2-hour marathon that is the Megacast every single day. Big thank you to him. Jared Clark, our Zoom producer over in Troy, Michigan, at the offices of My Michigan TV. Learn more information on mymytv.com about that whole operation. Mr. Larry Nyland, the king of television himself, our producer, getting all of our guests booked and ready for the show every day, and Maddie Muschin out at Master Control. Coming up next on My Michigan TV, it's Steve Lato Live, and we will return tomorrow morning right here at 10 a.m.